So welcome everybody to Talking Niagara on Friday, April 4th. And I'm hoping that we have better luck with the internet today than the last couple of days. You know?
Yes. Yeah, well, let's hope so. And, well, I don't know if I told you yesterday, but I won the All-Ontario speech contest.
Up in front of 600 other speakers, no doubt.
6,000. I just couldn't help it. It's just play. I'm going to have to take a pill or something.
and probably bested Vivian Thomas, eh?
Yeah, well, that would be hard work, let me tell you. I was talking to her last night, actually on the telephone.
Yeah.
She's going to write a book, for crying out loud. She already has a manuscript.
Going to write a book about the topic of her speech?
No, well, probably I don't know what the book is about. I think it's just basically snapshots of her life. She has a pretty unique life. So anyway, we'll see how that goes.
Good. Yeah. All right. So just stop the madness, say Canadians and Americans, as they unite about the tariff issue.
Yeah, I'm very pleased by this. I'm very pleased by it. This is about Trump. It's not about Canadians and Americans. It's about Trump and his sycophantic Republican Party that doesn't have the stones to hold to stand up to him. And this is not about Americans and Canadians. And I'm very, very pleased to see this. And the Americans there are supporting us, elbows up, supporting us. It's a very important cross-border issue because we do so much business back and forth, just local little business. You go over there to a bar or go watch a hockey game. They come over here.
Exactly. It's that small business, isn't it? The stuff, you go over there for this and that and the other. You spend, $100, $200 or something, not huge amounts of money, right?
Sure. If you go over there and you spend $100 Canadian, you're going to get a really nice pack of gum because that's about how much your Canadian dollars are worth.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's a lot of this cross-border trade is the little stuff, small things you buy. We Canadians go to America and buy things while they're there. $5 on this and $10 on that and $20 on a cup of coffee. On something in a restaurant or something.
Yes. So it's irritating. It's very irritating not to be able to go there and the fact that Canadians now have to have, if they're going to be there for more than 30 days, they're going to have to get fingerprinted and all that other stuff. Now I can see the sense of a lot of that because people sneak across the border and go down there and work and all that other stuff. But it's very minimal coming from Canada. But I don't know. I guess that they're going to use the same rules for everybody kind of now. So the whole thing that we have to be, fingerprinted and
so will they be fingerprinting our Canadian actors that live down there?
Well, we see that the U.S. Trump has stopped the 51st state thing, so that may help. Probably somebody's finally convinced them, don't do that, man. You want to make a deal with these people. You don't irritate them by insulting them continually. He's a cruel man anyway. He gets delight out of doing that, like belittling people. He has an intrinsic cruel streak that really bothers me. Humiliating a place like Lesotho. JT was the governor of Canada. Canada's the 51st state. He's belittled Cruz. He's belittled Rubio. He's belittled all these people in the past, but they all keep crawling back to him, and I don't know. It's just...
And the 300% South Georgia tariff when South Georgia does zero trade with US.
or the islands of Heard and McDonald. I can understand that in a sense because I looked into the trade, how they made these calculations and stuff. I didn't look into it, but I just came across it then I went looking for it. They've got a complicated system of they've got an equation. And if they don't have any data to work on, they just simply slap a 10% tariff on it. That's why uninhabited islands have an immediate 10% tariff on them, I guess, because if you make something and let's say suddenly China wants to go to the McDonald Island, uninhabited island, and put a T-shirt factory there and sell it, there'll be automatically have a 10% tariff on it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, okay. And also Republicans are trying to, rebels are trying to stop the Canadian tariffs. A vote went, basically there was Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, Paul Rand, and Susan Collins, who helped vote through a resolution on 51 to 48 basis to end Trump's emergency declaration of fentanyl trafficking that he used to justify the tariffs on Canada.
Yeah, it's a trumped up charge. The fentanyl that coming from Canada is nearly insignificant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's deadly
we
stuff.
We don't deny it's deadly. We don't deny that there was some trade in it, but it's insignificant, the amount of trade, when you consider the amount of fentanyl that exists in the US.
To use that as an excuse to put tariffs on, it really isn't a good excuse. And it looks like some of the Republicans are starting to grow a backbone now in resistance to Trump. Most of the other ones are just kind of cowering in a corner, or following around like a bunch of lemmings, because they don't want to get any kind of hate mail. Like Trump enthusiasts tend to send hate mail and death threats to people that do not believe in the God King, and so it's nice to see that some Republicans still have a backbone, and that may start to grow as each different state. It will depend on his trade policies. If different states are hurting, if the trade policy, now he says the trade policy will benefit the U.S. very quickly. There's no pain, there's no gain without pain. So there's going to be initial pain, but in a few short weeks or months, everything will be better and everybody will be rich and happy and all that. But
whenever a politician says everybody will be rich and happy, it means he's coming and he's putting his hand right in your pocket,
Well, the tariffs are a big tax.
I'm just a cynic here, right?
Yeah. So the tariffs are what they are, as a tax. They're a tax on the American consumer. Yeah. I don't know his end game here with all of this. I have to say that I don't know his end game. I'm trying to figure it out.
I sussed that out a few months ago. You see, when he put the signal out there, first of all, it was a sell signal to his friends on the stock markets, right? Yeah. He's a way to. There's a point.
Now it's buy.
Yeah. Now there's a point at which it's going to be a buy signal that goes out to all his friends. We're not quite there yet. We're close.
I don't know. I think the stock market might bounce back up again, as it does. When it goes down, it goes down like this, down, and then people buy, and it goes back up, and then they sell again. So very astute traders know how to watch that bump up and down and know how to take advantage of it. I don't know how far down it will continue to go.
Yeah, the stock market in the US will probably reach record levels again in a year's time.
Possibly could. This whole thing has to be sorted out. He's changed the whole system that the Americans took 70 years to build, he's changed it quite a bit. Now, I don't know what to make of it. I'm not an economist. If it works out positively, we can call him a genius. But if it doesn't, I have a feeling that he's got a get out strategy. He's already said that, if you negotiate with us, we'll figure it out. We'll get a better deal for you. But there's a whole kinds of mixed messages coming from the White House because Navarro says there's going to be no negotiations, none.
Yeah.
Ludnick has a different story too. And what's his name? Scott Hessent. He says, don't just write it out, everybody. Don't put
worry
any
about it. Yeah.
Don't put any retaliatory tariffs on us. Just write it out. Just watch what's going. Well, how's that going to really work? Right now, he's launched a trade war. China today is just, I think today or late yesterday, has put a 34% tariff back on the United States. So they're going tit for tat. And once people start doing tit for tats all over the place, all it does is make more things more expensive. And the people who suffer the most are not the inner circle of Trump or Xi Jinping or anybody else. It's going to be the average person. They're the ones that are going to have to pay more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anything else on tariffs?
Only that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I heard Navarro. I was watching a little video of Navarro today, trying to he was like at these times I go to Fox to see what kind of propaganda they put out. They're a bit nervous about these trade things too. They're not wholly in line, falling in line as they normally do. They gave away their soul many years ago, but they try to get it back once in a while.
Yeah.
And they were a little bit, questioning the whole thing. And they asked Navarro how they came up with the equation for the tariffs of different countries, like 41% in the Falkland Islands, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he started to talk about not only the tariffs that the American companies have resistance against, but the other policies that make it impossible for an American car to be sold in Japan, sort of thing. There's all kinds of trade policies, standard policies, and anything, guardrails to keep them out, even if they don't have any tariffs, which is true. I mean, Canada even suffers that themselves. So he said all those things, which is true, and then he tried to. Then when pressed how this,
but that's how
the equation worked, he just spilled over. He just started doing the same old thing. They've been taking advantage of us forever. Every one of these people who are pressed for details just say the world has been taking advantage of us. Well, yeah, we heard that before, but we want some more detail. Can you give us detail? We'll answer the question.
Yeah, but you see, issues like Japan not permitting US cars into Japan, that's a separate issue entirely. And that
was an example that he used.
Yeah, I know, but that's an example. I'm just utilizing that. I have no personal knowledge about whether that is or isn't true. Right?
It's true.
But and I'll take it to be true. Right. What I'm saying though is that that's something you deal with on a case by case basis, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole point of this overreaching tariff thing, is to avoid the long and ponderous, in their words, long and ponderous methods by which they come to those agreements. Because what happens when they start to negotiate, there's always monkey wrenches and stalls and stutters, and it takes a very long time to do these negotiations, and they just, because it's one country, they just get fed up. So their rationale is to have this equation. They've got an equation. They divide the deficit by such and such and whatever else. And even if you don't have a deficit, say you have a trade surplus with a country, they still slapping tariffs on them. So there's lots of this that needs to be tweaked. And let me be generous here. Let's say that it's a good overall good system, but it definitely has to be tweaked. It tweaked and tweaked and retweaked. The grand experiment here has a potential of making a lot of very poor people more poor.
Yeah,
and
that's always the challenge with anything like this, and it has an overreaching impact upon the world.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be as kind as I can now. If it all works out, he looks like a genius. Although I think he's trying very quick to get this done very, very fast, because it's a little bit speedier than Project 2025 has laid out for them. We know that Vance was a contributor to Project 2025, and I believe these people that loathed Trump before, like Rubio, like Vance, like everyone else, still go on behind him because they can't deny how popular he is and how he can bring voters around. So they hitch their wagon to him, and I'm not so sure that's the only way to satisfy their ambitions. They're not going to make it up the ladder very fast if they don't hitch their wagon to him.
Yeah,
swallow their pride. But they're asking for trouble. They have to. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I think probably the stock market will bounce up a little today before it can, or maybe even level off.
Well, it's been hesitant. It's been up and down the last few days. Right?
It dove incredibly yesterday. It dove down to the basement yesterday.
I didn't check yesterday, but yeah, in the last few weeks, it's been incredibly hesitant.
Well, Trump announced the retaliatory tariffs on Wednesday at 4:00 after trading, and he did that on purpose, because if he did it in the morning and the stock markets went crazy, he'd have to face those questions. So he did it Wednesday afternoon, suspecting the stock market would crash, and that's what it actually did. It was the worst year since the COVID times.
Yeah.
So that it crashed, the worst day it's had since 2020 during the economic disruption of COVID. The problem with COVID was that everyone knew that once COVID was over, things would repair themselves. I'm not sure that they have that same confidence now. So we'll see what happens to the stock market going forward. Everyone's really hesitant and they will be for some time to come. Once they understand the rules, then they'll just adapt to the rules. But the rules are still very vague, and the consequences of it are that's what's causing investors to pull out, or to even just to stall investment for the meantime.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking here about the Dow went down 4% basically. NASDAQ went down 6. S&P 500 went down 4.8. Nikkei went down 2.75. The DAX in Frankfurt went down 4.73.
Yeah, in general, the stock lost 1,670 points yesterday, and that is the steepest drop since the last economic confusion of COVID.
Yeah.
So the investors are looking at quite a interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they rally today. If they rally today, I can't really see it going much lower than it is right now. But if the investors need more clarity, they might start selling off again.
Yeah, the FTSE's been open several hours by now. Of course, the UK stock market, it's kind of moving slightly back up.
Yeah, I expected it to bounce a little bit because certain investors will see, okay, it's at a low point. If we load it, that happens. A lot of people come back into the market, load it back up. The stock goes back up. They sell it quick and then goes back down. So they'll do one of these up and down things for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to go any much more lower than that. The sell-off, we'll see. We'll see how that happens.
Do the rules give USA more for nothing because they need it? Not sure what
the rules are give USA more for nothing because they need it. Well, really trying to upset the order of things to happen. There's argument I can't speak to it because my economic knowledge is very limited, but this could cripple China. Actually, the trade thing he's just done with China, but there's going to be a tit for tat war going on, and as we've seen already, China has responded. When that tit for tat war going on, the biggest angst about that is how many people will suffer, particularly at the lowest levels of society all around the world.
Yeah,
because they're the ones.
It's always the poorer
up.
people that suffer. Yeah,
prices are going to go up even in the States and around the world because tariffs bring tariffs, and that kind of thing. I don't know. It may work. If there's a get out strategy, now I was listening to a couple of different economists, and they're saying this might not be as bad as it looks if Trump has a get out strategy. In other words, he can pivot and turn his back on some of this stuff or make quick deals with this place or that place. Like we took the view of Japan. Japan has all kinds of little trade impediments that on the surface they look like they don't charge a tariff, but under the surface there's all kinds of little different rules and regulations and things that restrict American cars coming into Japan. That's all true. So if they could fix that, that'd be good. That kind of thing. But so there is a lot of places where trade is not being fair. But I'm pretty sure that the Falkland Islands haven't really abused their position in the trade network over the United States.
No, exactly. That's why it's kind of madness. That's why there's a bit of madness there. All right, so moving on. Former Niagara Falls City Councilor Paisley Janvary-Pool is dead.
That's too bad.
She was 90. She was 90 on Tuesday.
Yeah, I remember she was a member of Stanford United Church.
But she had five children, 8 grandchildren, and 2 great-granddaughters.
Yeah. So I remember she was active all over the community all the time. She was. I'm very sure it's the same. I can't open that damn article now, so I can't read it. So.
Okay.
Anyway, I sent it to you. Can you open it up?
No, I can't open that one up.
Yeah, these articles won't open up for me the last few days.
Yeah.
After I send them to you, I can't open them up.
Yeah, what I've got for some reason, I've got the obituary from Dignity Memorial, .com, right? Which is, I think, where the funeral home puts their memorials.
Called her a true champion of the community.
She was councillor for 21 years, many civic committees, including Sports Wall of Fame, Recreation Committee, Canada Day Committee, and Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Yeah, this is where I was taking my mother to church some years ago, or the Stanford Lane United Church, and she was always there. She was always there, very active. Of course, now that my mother can't be moved too easily. I don't go to church anymore, so
Yeah.
I went in support of my mom, of course, but anyway, so that we've lost a real champion there. In fact, while the Millennial Trail here, Paisley Janvary-Pool pathway, some things are named.
Yeah.
I think she will be remembered for a very long time, and I can tell you at that church, Stanford Lane Church, I don't think she will be. She will be sorely missed for a very long time.
Yeah. I don't know too much about her insofar other than what I'm reading in the papers here. Because her years on council were before I came to Niagara Falls, I believe.
She will. She
I
had
know she was a good school teacher. A lot of school kids loved her.
yeah, she's just a general over, and she got an amazing memory. She remembered everybody.
The funny thing is, school teachers tend to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd appreciate if anybody else has got anything to say. We got 4 comments. Okay. Good morning. And who we're talking about is here
Paisley.
former city councillor Paisley Janvary-Pool. Janvary-Pool. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paisley was an icon of the city. She died at the age of 90, and she served the community in all different ways all the time.
Gary said she was a beautiful lady.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for adding that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was, like I said.
And Karen says she was amazing. Yeah.
There you go.
As I said, she was at a time before I moved to the city, so I have no knowledge of her.
It's very hard to quantify the contributions of a person like that over a lifetime. We'd never know, but all we know is that the place was a much better place because of her and her work behind the scenes. So it's really hard to say how much better the city was with a member of the community like that. But all we know is that things are better because of her.
Yeah. A person like that who comes on city council, they can, same with anybody who's there kind of right now, they'll be remembered for the 1 or 2 good things that they do overall, and possibly
a lifetime of service. So
yeah,
it's a lifetime of service, and it's like I said, it's hard to quantify.
Yeah, and possibly you only managed to achieve 1 or 2 good things.
What?
Possibly you only, in a life of service like that, possibly you managed to do 1 or 2 good things that people remember you by, and that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, she'll be remembered for certain things, and certain people will remember different things. But I would say the general overall life and service she put to the community and the way in which she did it, that's very, very difficult to quantify, except that you just know that things are better because of her in some way. She's a contributing factor in the positivity of our city. So that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, so she apparently went to Simcoe and Maple Street schools. She's a lifelong resident of Niagara Falls. She attended Hamilton Teachers College and later taught for DSBN.
Yeah. So a life of service.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as a school teacher, I think our school teachers are very often, underrated.
Yeah, many of them are. It depends on the teachers. There was a raft of teachers that went in. People became teachers because it was a good job and secure and paid well. But the generation of teachers that I had were people who wanted to be teachers when it was not well paid.
Yeah.
So they became teachers when the pay was not all that great, because they felt that was their vocation. That's what they should be doing. And I have a feeling that I'm an educated person today only because they had infinite patience with me.
You mean they didn't get out the whip and go, Wheeler, get on with it. Wheeler,
Well, sometimes they did. Yeah, sometimes they did. I mean, I get cracked over the head with a ruler all the time, or yardstick. I got books hammered over my head, my hair pulled, because teachers were different back then. They could get away with more stuff, right? But they didn't think they were doing anything wrong. I remember my French teacher, grade 9, nearly pulled my hair right out of my head. Holy cow. And it wasn't me that was making that. Like I was a victim of circumstance. It was the girl that was beside me that was making all the racket. But she turned around and she thought it was me and grabbed my hair and just pulled it out. I had nothing to do with it. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's called associating with the wrong people, Dave.
Look, I was a victim of circumstance all the time. I never did anything wrong. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. A victim of circumstance.
A victim of circumstance while he was at school. He spent his entire school years a victim of circumstance. So I now know what we're going to be putting in your obituary. Victim of circumstance.
Here lies Dave, a victim of circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. Was an okay welder. Was an okay this and that and the other, and he can even speak a bit or two. He won a speech contest one time.
The All Ontario Speech Contest, other than Wednesday.
All Ontario.
6,000 contestants, and I got number one. You think Trump's a megalomaniac? Oh, you think he exaggerates? Oh, wow, I think we can beat him.
Well, the interesting thing is about all of that, Dave, is that I'm glad to see that Toastmasters is still handing out ribbons. I'm very proud of the first ribbon I got, which was actually when I went to a club in Hamilton that I was thinking about joining. Toastmasters. It was a year or two before I did join Toastmasters, and I won the table. I won the table topics contest and table topics ribbon on my first ever attempt.
I hate to tell you this, Peter, but we do that all the time. we like Wednesday, the guy that was doing the table topics who won was a new guy coming in to visit. So we always do that. Sorry about that, Peter. I hate to burst your bubble. No, anyway. I'm sure you won fair and square, because Toastmasters will judge you up based on your based on how new you are and what level of development you are. So when somebody new comes in and they speak fairly well, that's enough for us to say, yeah, well, they did better than us because they're new. They haven't been acquainted with this kind of thing, and they spoke very well. So they.
No, he talked. The chair of that particular meeting talked about the fact that I'd broken down the speech, the impromptu speech into 3 parts, and it worked well, based upon the 3-part rule.
Well, I remember the first time I spoke, and somebody gave me the topic was Abraham Lincoln, and luckily for me, I just had finished reading a book about a month or so before. So I was able to pontificate up there of what Abraham Lincoln and the blah, 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 I did this and that. And then I sat down, and the person that won table topics that day took the ribbon and went over to me and gave it to me.
Okay.
I said, well, thanks. I didn't win. Oh, and she says, I think you did. So
Yeah, well, there you go. All right. Okay. So, yep. Well, thank you for your service, Paisley Janvary-Pool, and I'm sure you'll be missed around the city.
oh yeah.
We got three other comments. The battles her and Norm Puttick would get into made for great TV. One meeting would end, and you're excited to, for the final season of Commando 2. Right. I can picture her and Wayne Campbell meeting and giving each other a big hug.
Yeah. Well, like I said, she was an icon, and Stanford, my church, Stanford Lane. Well, I never go there, but
Yeah.
we'll be missing her huge, because she was always in and around when the services were here and there and everywhere. She was very active.
Karen says her Toastmaster ribbons are in her memory book.
You were a Toastmaster too?
Yeah, actually, the thing is, I was going to say, I remember Karen came along to Toastmasters, and a lot of the time she kind of sat there looking at what went on in Toastmasters when I was actually a member. And I don't know whether she actually joined, but she did win a number of ribbons.
All right, Karen. All right. Use those skills acquired for your Green Party candidacy.
She
You got
does.
a big mountain to climb there.
That is actually an important factor, because I think that she does use those skills. And every time I've heard Karen speak, she's a wonderful speaker.
Well, I've seen her on TV once in a while. Like when I used to go to the studio to work, either as on the phones, on the computer, or even as a caller at Bingo. Karen, they would be running Karen's show on TV.
Yeah.
So I'd listen to it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on. That guy who was arrested for the Niagara Falls stabbing was the wrong guy.
Oh, seriously. Like, so they got a guy, and they said they got the guy, and it was the wrong guy. But they were able to hold him for other things, because, of course, he had bail issues and all that. And they eventually were able to get the proper guy. I hope they got him. It was a 23-year-old.
It's a 20-odd-year-old Toronto man, and he was arrested in Toronto, and he's actually he remains in custody and be scheduled to have a bail hearing in court in Toronto on Wednesday, April 9th.
Well, the idiot. Like, if they give that guy bail, I'll just be freaking. Like, a guy stabs a guy, and they're going to give him, and they even could. Well, they have to consider bail, but
they have to consider.
You think he'll get out on bail?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be horrific to think that he would get out on bail, but again, generally speaking, with the more dangerous offenses, with vicious offenses like stabbings, they tend to avoid bail if they can. But a lot will depend upon what's in place there, what supports are in place.
I suppose so, but look, they gave bail to a violent indigenous man. It did. You remember?
That went on and committed more crimes. Yeah.
Well, he killed the cop. He killed the young cop on his first day of service. The cop pulled over to help him out because he skidded his car into the ditch, got out, and the guy put 6 bullets into the cop.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So, and they gave him bail, and the Crown protested vehemently. Do not give this guy bail. He's a dangerous offender. Don't take him out. And based on the fact that he was an indigenous guy and his mother came and to say he was light and nice and he's going to be taken care of. And I'm afraid that some dumbass uh, uh, judge will do the same kind of, oh, be a good boy, don't stab anyone. Okay, you promised,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well,
Anyone
meanwhile,
who stabs someone multiple times, there's a problem there.
yeah. Meanwhile, our the victim, has actually been released from hospital and is recovering. So he actually didn't go to Niagara Regional Hospital, but was helicoptered out.
Yes, they went directly to
Hamilton, I believe.
yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
But so I just hope this guy doesn't get bail. I know you have to look at the circumstances of the situation, but to stab someone multiple times, you're a little sick in the noodle.
Yeah, that's not a he shouldn't get bail, but then again, the trial needs to proceed quickly.
Yeah, well, the bail hearing's happening soon, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's next week, next Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think.
Anyway, what else we got there?
Yeah. Okay. So, that was more on that. Lich and Barber have been found not guilty.
I'm happy about
charges. Pardon me?
I'm very happy about that. I never thought they were guilty of a whole lot. They wanted a protest. They wanted a protest. They had a lot of problems with Trudeau, and they had a lot of problems with the vaccine protocols and all of that. Most of which I disagreed with them, but I felt they had the perfect right to demonstrate. And the Emergencies Act was put upon them, and all kinds. I think it was all overblown. The kind of things they were accusing them of. I think this is a miscarriage of justice. They should have just gone the mischief thing. They're both charged of all the charges that were put upon them. Tamara Lich only gets a mischief charge, and I think okay, they should have just gone with that straight away. All the other stuff was rubbish.
The thing that I'm concerned about here mostly is that how was there some wrong? Undoubtedly, there probably was, but we've spent how is it 3 years now? This prosecution's been going on,
and how's that going against the public purse?
Yeah, and how has that gone against the public purse? Yes, exactly. That's my biggest concern here. We spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars pursuing these two. And
millions probably.
Possibly, yeah. And the thing is that, clearly the politicians wanted them guilty, but sanity
They wanted a scapegoat.
Yeah, but sanity has prevailed, I think, at the end of the day.
I don't think these should have even been it was very clear from very early on that this was not some massive conspiracy to overwhelm the government. There was 5 aspects of these protesters. They came from 5 different camps. Barber and Lich were part of one of them. They themselves were unhappy with the some of this disorder of their protests. Their intent was very clear from the very beginning that it had nothing to do. Now, the mischief thing for disrupting a city and getting in the way of the life force of the city, the people of the city were pretty much annoyed because their whole city fell apart and was non-functional. All of this, and I would go after the cop, the police chief who messed up in the very beginning. Like they were supposed to have, I don't know. And then I would go after JT, who frothed at the mouth, called them misogynists and racist and all that other stuff. They called them racist when there were Sikhs cooking food for them and there was indigenous people who led the convoy into the city. Yeah, that's really racist and misogynist. Oh yeah, well their leader was Tamara Lich. Yeah, that's really misogynistic. And the overspeak from the government, I like,
and actually,
nuts.
I actually, I'm 100% in support of people's right to go and protest. Protest all you want, but go into the town, protest for a day, and leave. Right, that's the way I look at it. Them hanging around, I was not in support of. And they hung around way too long. Maybe hang around for the weekend, leave on Monday. You could have made a big play of it on the TV, etc. Leaving Monday. There was no need to stay beyond that. But that's my view upon it. I know, for example, Angela's probably hopping mad right now about these being guilty because she thinks there was a conspiracy going on.
I don't think so.
No.
I really don't. I don't think there's any much experience at all. I think my experience with this whole thing is how woefully unprepared and uninformed the government was. And they saw this coming, and it was roundly supported. Like, these people got cheered all the way across Canada to go to Ottawa. They were cheered to go there. Unfortunately, the thing got a life of its own. The truckers were only supposed to pass through town and stay outside of town, park their rigs there, and come into town to protest during the day and all that. Yeah. But it got kind of out of hand.
If it had been done that way, if they'd have come into town by bus or something like that, if they'd been bussed into town, the truckers, then I think we wouldn't be where we are right now.
The thing got a life of its own, unfortunately, and it lost its direction. And if you listen to some of the interviews by Barber, he was getting very kind of a little bit anxious about how things were going because there was no progress in anything. So they came to protest, and each different faction had a different thing to protest. Some hated Trudeau, some were the vaccine types, and there was like at least 5 different factions, and they all had their own beefs, and they all supported one another, but there was nothing being done, and there was no real accomplishments. And I lay that on the government. The government could probably have moved those people if they had gone and talked to some of their leaders, but they didn't have defined leaders. Like Lich and Barber, and there's a few others, got the thing going, but there was no one defined leader who says this is what we're going to do in that. They did define their code of ethics, where you are supposed to have behaved in a better way than they did, like the honking of horns and so on, like that. So there was a code of ethics, and the truckers used to pull up their paper. This is the code of ethics in which we are going to protest, and most of them obliged by that.
Okay, Mike points out what a waste of time and money. All right. Karen's laughing and giggling in the background.
Yeah, I think basically they just should have gone and be charged with mischief. That was undeniable. They could make that case, but all the others were clearly false right from the very beginning.
Yeah, too much of a stretch, and the mischief charge should have been dealt with by a magistrate.
Yeah, it could have been all overdone, and they threw Tamara Lich in jail for 45 days. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a real threat to society.
Yeah, it's like typically, and a lot of what happens typically with these types of protests, if the police arrest somebody, they release them once the hubbub's gone down. So they arrest them at 2:00 when there's a bit of a nuisance going, whatever's going on. Then at 6:00 they kind of release them and say go home.
It was an attempt for face saving by the government. I think the Liberal government should apologize to both of them. and apologize to the Canadian people for using so much of their money and so much of their time to prosecute people who were clearly more victims of like me, a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could say they did public mischief, but they had a defined role and they were going to protest, and they organized this thing, and of course it got out of their hands. They never intended it to be as large as it was and ill-defined.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wasted a whole lot of money and time. We should just slap them with a mischief thing and sent them home.
Yeah. Exactly. And typically, as I say, I've seen stories before of a protests where the police have arrested people, and typically the police just release them later in the evening or next day or something like that.
Oh, sure.
And it's what typically happens with these types of things. And why this one was special, I don't know. It just was, to my mind, the whole thing was just blown out of proportion.
It was.
Right.
And the rhetoric by the government is what was cringing to me. The misogynist, the racist, all this, and even saying, "Did you see that? A Confederate flag?" Well, it was one guy. One guy drove with a Confederate flag, and they're trying to paint the whole of them as racist, right-wing fanatics.
Yeah, and the fact that you had, what was it? And also same with a couple of Nazi.
There was one Nazi flag.
Yeah.
There was one Nazi flag in it, and it was arms, and it looked more like they were the flag was suggesting that the government were Nazis because they had vaccine type needles on it. So it wasn't they were trying to say that the government was acting like Nazis rather than we're Nazis here.
Yeah. 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 And again, a lot of, although that's clearly educationally wrong, but, but hey, I get it that you put out a you put out a statement, right or wrong, and protesters have the right to be wrong.
Sure they do.
Right?
They do. I didn't agree with a whole lot of what they did, but I'll tip my hat to a global news reporter that just walked around the crowd for a couple of hours, and I watched his tape. When he just went around the first few days it started, he went around and he started in the first week, just started talking to people here and there, the protesters. Some came and went. A lot of them came and went because, of course, you got to go to work and all that.
Yeah.
But talked to a whole bunch of them, and there was different reasons why everybody was there. Some of the people believed in the vaccines, but did not believe in and had vaccines themselves, but did not believe they should be pushed on people the way they were. That was probably my camp. Like, I went and got the vaccines, but I was clearly against anyone forcing anyone to have them in any kind of way. But
again, that one is actually, the vaccine issue has been something that is has a wider consequences, because there's now a number of people. We've seen a number of lawsuits more recently whereby people have been told they were always a home worker. They were always they signed their contract even before COVID to work at home. Now they've been told back to the office.
Well, that's a completely different issue.
Yeah, but it's related. And some of them have actually been told back to the office because, and now have been fired because they didn't get a COVID shot.
All right, get ready for an office worker convoy to Ottawa.
No, it won't be a convoy to Ottawa. They'll be dialing in from their own homes.
Well, I don't know. I think they'll probably just go into Ottawa, and everybody will open up their laptop and their phone and start typing it. It's so loud that the people will have to put their,
So
that's going
loud,
to
eh?
be their interpretation of blasting a horn.
Right. So 1,000 people clicking their thing. Yeah. I don't know whether that'll do anything.
Well, I know. Well, JT's not there, but if he was around, he'd be running out saying, calling them Nazis and stuff. But
well, he's no longer prime minister.
yeah, well, he might be one of them now.
You mean one of the protesters? Yeah, it's an interesting career move. Yeah.
Well, you might see him out that way. He doesn't have a job now, so you might see him out there selling phone covers or something like that too.
Well, he's probably made enough money in the last 10 years not to need a job anyway.
He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth,
Yeah,
so there's no
besides which he'll be on the speaker circuit in the next couple of weeks. $20,000 to go to hear JT speak.
Yes, yeah, yeah, he'll be on the circuit, all right. This is going to be a boom for farmers because they can sell a lot of rotten tomatoes before people go into them.
Oh, come and hear JT speak, but don't bring your rotten tomatoes with you. I don't think I don't know. Interesting.
Okay, so what else we got here? We're getting close to the end.
We don't have a whole heap unless you've got something else.
I think what was the last thing I added there?
You added a BBC News story, which we talked about at the very beginning, which was the Republicans' rally to try stop Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, that was very, very good. We find there's cracks in the Trump empire, but I still have real issues with the sycophantic type of leader. Like Trump is very messianic. He's super powerful, appeal to the average person. And these people are hitching their wagons to him. They all hate him. If you look at Rubio, what he said about Trump, what Vance has said about Trump, and all these other people who said about Trump, they can't deny his power of persuasion. And they're hitching their wagon to his star, and I'm not so sure they're gonna. But they still despise him, I think, in the final.
But actually, one of the things I think is fairly true is that when it came to kind of Mark Carney versus Trump, it was clear Trump utterly despised Trudeau.
Oh, I've got something. Yeah, well, he did because Trudeau was caught by a hot mic after being nice to Trump at a G7 meeting, then got caught in a hot mic, jibber jabbering, gossiping behind his back, that kind of thing, and that Carney's never been caught.
That doesn't help. Yeah, that doesn't help.
That was the source of that. He talked like basically he was the best friend of Donald Trump. Apparently, they'd got on well. Trump said so, and then he got caught on a hot mic telling everybody what he really thought of Trump.
Best wishes on the campaign. Best wishes on the campaign trail, Karen.
Yes, Karen. Have a great time. Oh, one thing I'd like to point out: the Wisconsin judge, Susan Crawford, who was a Democrat and who won the judge election in Wisconsin after Elon Musk put $26 million in against her, one of the largest ever financed opponent in history for such a position. She's won the seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. She's from a place called Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. As soon as I heard that, it clicked into my mind that the character that Leonardo DiCaprio played on Titanic was a guy by the name of Jack Dawson, I think, and he hailed from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And the reason why he hailed from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, is because James Cameron came from Chippewa and Niagara Falls, and so he wanted to put the character come from a place that represented him, and a place, Chippewa Falls, met that criteria because it was Chippewa. He was from Chippewa, and he was from Niagara Falls. So they put, okay, we'll put him from there, and that would be a kind of a homage to James Cameron. There you go. Just a little bit of trivia for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we learned something or not in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think we can kind of call it quits at that point.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Don't forget